How are you looking?
Good.
Okay, cool. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I did this SHIPLAP bullnose wrap right here around these two walls leading up my staircase here. I've got a lot of questions about this job, so I'm going to share with you guys just the tips and tricks in this video on how I did this. What we're doing is a good solution for a problem I have. This right here is a damaged wall. There used to be an upper cabinet here, a backsplash, a lower cabinet here. Long story short, the previous owner did some paneling that ended here. That's why there's a difference in paint color. So I'm going to cover up this wall. That one is not too bad. I can repair it, but this one I don't want to mess with. So we're going to wrap it in this bullnose shiplap fashion. So that's the wall we're working with, and let's get started. Now the first thing we want to know is where are we going to start? Meaning, are we going to start at the floor and start stacking these shiplap boards up on top of each other? Or are we going to start at the ceiling and start stacking, working our way down towards the floor? So I'll give you my opinion on it. For me, it's a no-brainer, but it may be different for you. And the reason for me it's a no-brainer is if you look over there on the work I've already done on those two walls, you can see that there's a reveal between the crown and that first piece of shiplap. And the reveal is about 4 inches. So looking back over here, I want to match that reveal. And I've already done the math to figure this out. I need to drop this first board 2 3/8 to get my crown to have the same reveal here. For me, it's a no-brainer. I got to do that. I got to start at the top. Now for you, you may be able to start at the bottom, but I will warn you, if you're not going to have a crown, make sure you do the math. If you start at the bottom, that you're going to have almost a full board at the top. It usually will never work out where you'll start at the bottom and just stack and you'll have a perfectly full board at the top. So in every case, even if I'm not putting crown, I'm starting at the top and working my way down, because the last thing I want is to have a thin strip of shiplap at the top of this ceiling here. So imagine if this is where my second to last board ended. Well, I got to fill in this awkward little strip right here, and now whoever's living in that house has to stare at that for the rest of their life. It just doesn't look good. So my recommendation, start at the top, work your way down. Whatever thin little strip is left over, it's not gonna matter because you're gonna have a baseboard cover it. And if you're not gonna have a baseboard cover it, it's less obvious. There'll be furniture in the way or whatever. So start at the top and work your way down. Now when marking these bullnose corners, you're going to want to have this bullnose trim gauge. There's many of these on the market. This one is made by Bench Dog and I use it a lot. This right here, the space between here is measured 5/8 of an inch. And the reason they do that is because these bullnose outside drywall corners here, they're 5/8 right there where the radius turns. So it just helps you so much from holding up sample pieces and trying to mark it. You can just throw this thing on there, and for me, I've got to mark this whole wall all the way down. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to hold this bullnose trim gauge firmly against that corner, put my pencil in there. I want to make sure it's even on both sides, which it pretty much just falls into place. And then I can just drag my pencil down, and you can see it's going to mark this thing the whole way for me. So that's about as far as I'll go right now for being up on this ladder. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And now I'm going to do the same thing to this other side. And that way I can measure from that wall to this line, from this line to the line I make here, and then from this line to that wall. That's how I'm going to get all these measurements. So what we're using here today for our material is this radiata pine shiplap. It's pre-primed, it's 1/2 inch thick by 5 1/4 wide. And the way that this works, this shiplap, is that when you put this together, it creates a natural space. So I can try to sit there and push this thing together, but it's always gonna have that gap there. The way they do that is this lap joint right here is slightly longer than this one here. So there's a shorter lap joint there, longer lap joint here. When you put them opposites, they won't allow you to come together. So this obviously isn't real shiplap. You know, people talk about real shiplap all the time, and who cares? It doesn't matter. Real ship, you may have noticed too, this is a house, not a ship. Real shiplap was made to waterproof ships where you didn't want that board. You didn't want that gap in those boards. You wanted them to be watertight, and then they would put like a sealer on it so no water could get in. But this is modern decorating. So this is what we call shiplap. So that's what we're using for material, and we want to make sure that whenever we install these boards, that on the back of these boards there's a barcode where they scan them, and you can usually tell they're usually the rougher side of the board. Like it has a bunch of damage right here from the meal or whatever, and then it has a barcode here. So what we need to make sure of is once we cut that barcode off, it could be a little confusing if the back of the board is smooth as well. So what we want to make sure of is that when we're stacking these boards, that we're stacking them where we're always going to have that gap, because you could get confused and stack them like that where, uh-oh, now that's tight now. We don't want that. We want to accentuate that gap and make it pop out. We're going to use it as a detail. So real quick, one other thing, this will help you a ton because it helped me, and I made this mistake the hard way. Once you know what the good side is, like for example, you see that barcode there, this is the bad side. Do this on the back of the board. That way, once you cut that barcode off, anything that has a pencil line on it, you know, hey, that's the bad side. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. It's gonna save you a ton of time and a ton of head scratching at the saw and lining up boards and wondering what side is good and what side is bad. And one thing you may have noticed too about this is I got these new fender flares, so that added about, I would say 40 horsepower at least. No, I'm just kidding. But I do like them. I really do like them. But what I was really going to say, you may have noticed, is that I don't have enough boards to complete this project. So we're going to get as far as we can today. You guys will get the idea, and when I get some more boards, I'll finish it up later. So now that we know the good and bad side of our shiplap face here, we can go ahead and get started on these cuts. Like anything in trim, we're going to start with those long cuts first, and then use the offcuts to make our little bullnose pieces. Now keep in mind, every cut that I'm going to make, with the exception of the pieces that just die into the straight walls, they're all going to be 22.5, because as you turn 90, you have 45 degrees, right? Like any 90-degree turn, you're going to split that miter 45, 45. Well, with this bullnose piece, you're adding 2 more cuts into it. So really, you're splitting 94 times. Or you could look at it as you're splitting 45 2 times. Either way, you're going to arrive at 22.5, which is very common, and it's a set detent on the miter saw. So it'll slide right in to that detent at 22.5. So I just wanted you guys to know that's the miter that I'm cutting for all this. So we got our first piece cut here, and what you guys may have noticed is I crept up on that cut, which is a pretty common practice. Basically, it's me cutting a little bit into the board until I see right where the blade's gonna hit on my pencil line. So I just make a few cuts, get to my pencil line, and then I finish the cut. The reason I do that is because it's a little tricky on this shiplap. Let's say that you had a measurement that ended here. Let's say you had, let's just call it 5 inches from here to here. Well, you can mark it 5 inches here, but by the time you cut it, you're going to be mistaken when you go to fit your piece. because where you really need to mark it is back here on this back ledge of the lap joint. So right there where I tried to draw that arrow. You want to mark it back here on this ledge, because let's say I cut it here. Well, by the time I make that miter, it's going to trail off in either direction and it's going to make it short. And this back ledge is really what matters. This is where your joints are going to come together. So keep that in mind. Creep up on the cuts and mark that back ledge of the shiplap joint. So now when it comes to these bullnoses, they're just going to be 22.5 degree cuts. And again, I'm going to want to mark them on the back ledge and put my blade on the back ledge of that lap joint. So we'll go here, 5/8. Let me check that. So I'm good with that. And now what I can do here, and this is going to be a very important time saver with this one, I'm going to creep up on that cut, but once I get it where I want it, I'll have a pencil line right there. So, and I actually already have it. So I can just line up this cut with that pencil line and just cut. So I don't have to creep up on every single one of these bullnose cuts. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on gluing this using the CA glue and starting with the small pieces first. This stuff is quick and doesn't give you much time to work with it, but saves you a ton of time versus waiting for a regular wood glue to dry. So we'll go with our other bullnose on the other side. Now for gluing this piece to the long piece is going to be a little tricky. So I just like to find an angle that I'm comfortable working with and see if I can line it up without the glue first. And if I can, then I can go ahead and get the glue and activator going. If I can't, then I need to find another angle to work with. And I think I can work with that right there. So what I'm going to do in this case, you just got to get creative with it. You really do. Use gravity to your advantage. So like this, what I can do is just hold this so I can let the gravity work for me with the glue. And then I can activate this one. And then I need to get back in that angle that I was comfortable with. This is going to be the trickiest part of this whole job, is getting this thing glued together, but it can be done. I'll hold that one for a little bit longer. This one's going to have a lot of stress on it whenever because we're going to have to flex it a little bit when we hug it around that wall. And if anything, I recommend that you make your measurements, you take your measurements and you just go a little bit bigger, not a 16th, maybe just like a 32nd. I know tape measures don't even read that in the tape measures that we use, but just slightly bigger. They call it a scotch in the field. A scotch bigger is what it's called. So yeah, just a little bit bigger. So with that, we're glued together. And what I'm going to do to just ensure that these things don't snap, and you can see that's strong. I mean, I can hold this thing up. I'll hold it from the long point, and the short point will support all of that. Now, CA glue is great for this, but once you start stressing it on this real wood, it wants to break. So just be careful with that. And if you wanted to, what you could do is you could dab a little just regular wood glue in between the CA glue and just let it sit That'd be like an extra safety measure. I've thought about doing that, but I've never done it. I've never had to. If you take the right measurements and you glue this thing up properly and just be gentle with it, you can wrap it around that wall in there. So let's see if I did everything I just told you. Let's go check it out. So we'll try to approach this thing as straight as possible. And the key is to get it to slide in evenly. Just make sure it's seated up against that spacer board. Is it?
Yeah.
All right, that's good. How you looking on, is it up against the wall over there?
No.
No, but I mean, like, is it touching that wall?
Yeah.
Like, pretty good. Okay, that's all we need. So now you can see that we've got this board, this unit, I guess you would call it, of shiplap in place. You're gonna wanna find the studs, and we already found the studs over here. I gotta find them on this side, but I know this thing is solid wood, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start nailing this thing in. All you need is 18 gauge brads. They're gonna hold just fine, and you don't need anything bigger than that. 16 would kind of be overkill, because again, this is 1/2 inch thick. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had some people ask about blind nailing it. I don't recommend that, but basically what it is when you shoot here in the joint, the lap of the joint, and then you know, it'll hide it with the next lap joint. This stuff is just too thin and the pine is just too weak to do that. The nail will pretty much just rocket through it. So now we have our reveal set and we're good to go.
Can I push it with the thing? Yeah, right.
I'm gonna call OSHA.
Whoa.
You gotta shoot it in the corner.
What do you mean?
You have bare feet on the fridge, you get fired.
What are you gonna do with it?
All right.
Okay, hold on.
So I'll, what?
Closer?
No, just shoot it into the corner.
It's not working.
Oh, it might be out of nails. So
Okay.
what we're gonna do, yeah, this is what we end up with. We're right on our lines here. You can see that. And we're right on our pencil lines here as well. And we're good to go. This thing came out looking really good. Did you figure it out? Okay. Oh, that nail, right?
It's okay.
All right. Piece number 2 of 20. That's a nice fit right there. And now you can see it's starting to come together here. So we're just gonna keep working our way down. She's just gonna keep climbing on the fridge there. I'm a trooper. Just kidding.
She's so cute.
You get stage fright.
No, I'm a trooper.
So here's what we're looking like after piece number 2 is installed. And I really like the way this looks. One thing you want to check periodically as you're installing this stuff is that all your lines are lining up as you make your way down. So you can see this line right here with the shadow, especially when the light hits it. If they're off, you can really see. So just make sure they're all lined up. And the way you can do that and just make sure is just measure every time. So, you know, I took this measurement up here first for this whole unit, and then when it came to this one, guess what I did? I measured every side all over again, because there's going to be variance in this wall. Nothing's ever perfect. So if you just measure every unit individually, you should have all of this line up. So we're getting ready for piece number 3. One of these boards are slightly warped, so I'm hoping it works out. Just has a bow in it. It'll be fine if I can get it to slide over without snapping it. It's just a game of finesse. Can you support that side? Just like that. Hold on a second. How are you looking?
Good.
Okay, cool. Obviously, when you're putting the next boards in, you know, there's a little play in there. So you want to make sure you can just seat it all the way up. I just hit it till I hear it hit the next board and you know you're good. So there's how you get started on the first boards when you're doing this. It's really simple, and I'm not gonna make you guys watch me do the next 16 of these. It's gonna be the exact same thing. I'm gonna cut out where there's plugs, just make little notches where the light switches are. That'd be the only difference from what you see, but I'm just cutting, gluing, and sliding these things into place. And I got this piece of crown right here, and I'll show you how that looks a little bit. I'll kind of hold it roughly in place. And I got that same reveal all the way across that I have on the two other walls that I did this shiplap on where the stairs are. So it looks really good. I really like the look. I think it's clean and modern and has a lot of character, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about shiplap in general, if you like it. And let me know if you have any questions about this project or anything that you've seen in this video. But other than that, I'm gonna wrap this one up. And hopefully you guys learned something. I'll see you next time. Take care.